8 days. Okay, this is specifically for people who are service providers. Typically, they're doing done for you or done with you services. This can be applicable to any organization. The principles are the same. However, the things I talk about are going to be specific to that type of an entrepreneur or service provider. So, number one, we always want to begin with the end in mind. So, what would be helpful is if you took a piece of paper and wrote down some of these numbers because they're going to be specific to you. Okay, this is going to be customized to you and what you need. So, if this is something you're looking to actually do in your own business, I recommend grab that piece of paper. All right. So, number one is we need to determine what you're selling. What is it that's going to get us to that 100,000? How much are you selling? What are you selling to get you to the $100,000? Okay. And that's going to have a certain price to it. And all you have to do is take 100,000 divided by that price. And that is the number of units that you need to sell. Okay. So if you have a $10,000 program, you need to find 10 new clients. So we got to get really clear on what that result is that we're looking to create. What's the key performance indicator that's going to get us to that 100,000? Okay. So the performance indicator is number of units sold. And you are going to put in the specific number for your particular business. Now, if your goal is different than 100,000, maybe say it's $1 million that you want to do in the first quarter of, say, next year. If you're developing a plan for that, then just adjust the math accordingly. All right. Now, before anybody ever buys anything, there's a sales conversation that happens, right? There's a closing conversation. So you need to determine how many closing conversations that you need to have before you get that number of sales. So let's just stick with our $10,000 10 client example. Okay. If you have a closing rate of 50%, then you need to speak to 20 people in order to close half of them, which would be 10. Okay, so this is going to depend on your numbers and metrics. And as kind of a sidebar, this is why data is so important in business, is because data-driven decisions help us make high-quality decisions. So always be tracking your numbers so that you can allocate your time and resources effectively. All right, so we'll determine the number of sales conversations you need to close. So you're going to have a number on your piece of paper now. Take your how many units you need to sell, how many new clients, and what's your close rate, okay? So that you can determine how many conversations do you actually need to have, okay? Now, before you even get into a sales conversation with somebody, there's a relationship that's going to be established. Now, if you're an online entrepreneur and you're selling things online, you can look at this the same way. The principles are the same, like I said at the beginning of this, but the relationship is going to be established through like a website or content, things like that. When you're doing service-based business work, your relationship is built on conversations, okay? Frankly, the relationship is the conversation. That is where a relationship is formed, is built, is deepened. So always be having conversations with the right people. Okay, so you're going to have, number one, how many of your program you need to sell. Number two, or how many new clients you need to enroll. Number two, how many sales conversations you need to close that number of clients. Number three, the number of invitations you need to send to invite for sales conversations. Okay, so you're going to send invitations. So number three is how many invitations are you going to send? Number four is the number of relationships that you have where you have established three things with people. Number one, you've established what their goal is and what they want. Number two, you've established the gap or the obstacle keeping them from achieving that goal. And I guess it's kind of a bonus. And you honestly can solve that problem for them. You're not trying to shove a square peg in a round hole. You can truly serve them and make their life better through your service. Okay. And then the last kind of bonus, that was three. The last one is trust. This person has to trust you. They have to know you. They have to like you. They have to trust and know that you can actually solve their problem. Okay. So there's lots of ways that we can create that trust. And that is not what today's video is about. I can do a video on that another time. If that's something of interest, just let me know in the comments. But you need to have those essentially four things. You need to have a relationship where you're clear on their goals. You're clear on the obstacle keeping them from those goals. You are, excuse me, you are genuinely able to help them, and you have trust and rapport built with them. Okay. All right. Number five. Number five is the number of conversations that you need to have to build up the number of relationships that you need. Okay. So if number four is the number of close, qualified relationships with leads, number five is the number of conversations you need to have with those leads. I know this can be, I feel like I need a visual for this. So if you're not tracking with me, let me know. But number five is the conversations. So what that looks like is time on your calendar talking with people. Maybe it's Zoom calls. Maybe it's going out to lunch. This could also look like you speaking in front of other people's audiences or in front of your own audience. It takes about 16 touch points for you to build a real relationship with somebody to the point where they would actually consider making a purchase with you. So if you think about that number 16, you've got to get in front of your person 16 different times in order to have that well-established trust. Now, the other day I was on a call with somebody who I had just met. We are in a mutual community together that we both pay to be a part of. So there is already some trust and respect that's already been built. Now, this was the first time I ever talked to this person. We had a great conversation. It was about 20, 30 minutes long. And at the very end, this person pitched me their program. Now, I didn't need it and I didn't want it, and they didn't know or take any time at all to discover if I had a goal that they could help me meet with a obstacle that they could help me overcome, and there wasn't enough trust and rapport built yet. So that person kind of flushed a lot of rapport down the toilet for me because it's just not a great way to do business. It's not a great way to build relationships. It's a very taking, it's a very scarcity, almost desperate way, energy that comes up. And I'm not a super big fan of that. Okay. So when you're having these conversations, you do not want to do that. That is going to have the opposite effect of what you're looking for. You want to be giving. You want to be in an abundant mindset. You want to be genuinely serving people. Sometimes when we're in sales, we can see it as we are sitting across from the person and we're trying to win, right? It's like a debate and it's like, who is right? But that's not how I see sales. Sales is where you are sitting on the same side of the table as the person that you're supporting. And you're taking a look at their goals and their obstacles, and you're saying, yeah, that I can see how you have that challenge. I can see where you want to go. I know the path for you to get there. Would you like support in getting to that place you want to go? Okay. And it's much more of a collaborative relationship that is built on real it's a real relationship. Like it's so funny. I feel like I repeat myself, but it truly is about building a friendship with people and a client, relationship with them. All right. So those are fairly simple steps. Now there's some nuance to these things. Okay. Who you are in conversation with matters. Where you find them matters. And then what you say matters. All right. So let's first talk about the who. Who you're in a conversation with is important. Okay. Everybody in marketing talks about creating your ideal client, right? Your ideal client is helpful and it's very necessary to have because what it does is it filters out who not to be talking to. When you're talking to the wrong person, it's a waste. It's a waste of your time. You don't have time to waste. So make sure that you are clear on who it is you're looking for and be able to filter and make decisions about whether or not this person is qualified to get into a sales conversation with you. All right. So you may need to write down some qualifying pillars of, is this person meet this thing? Yes or no. Right. Like if you are, say, a divorce coach, is this person getting divorced or already is divorced? If they're not and they're happily married, why would you talk to them? Because that's not the service you provide, right? So be really, really discerning about who you get into who you give your time and who you get into conversations with. Now, as you're building a relationship with somebody brand new, kind of like the person I spoke to earlier, it takes time to build that relationship. So don't expect that you won't have conversations in order to get to that other side where you do understand and qualify them and know whether or not it's a good fit. Not everybody is. One of the most valuable things that can happen to you is to get a no, to get no's from people. Either no in a sales call, no, I don't want your product, no in a as you're qualifying them, because that's great information. You can use that information to make better decisions. Okay, where you find them matters. So we want to go fishing for people in the right pond. If we're not clear on where that right pond is, we're going to spend a lot of time sloshing around in places that really aren't effective for us. One huge example of this is social media and online marketing. I see so many people who go fishing in the wrong pond, and they go create a bunch of stuff and they do a bunch of things because somebody told them to, because some marketer said, here's how you make money. Here's how you grow a business. And guess what? That may not be right for you. It depends. Okay. So if you are off writing a book because someone told you that that's how you grow a business, maybe. It depends on you, your scenario, your strategy, what you want out of life, how much money you want to be making, who your person is, where do they hang out, what stage of business you're in. There's a lot of different things to be looking at. And that's why having a strategist and someone who can see this big picture is really, really helpful in business, because it gives context to what is the right thing to be doing right now. Writing a book is not always the right thing. Starting a podcast is not always the right thing. Running a Facebook group is not always the right thing. Getting into one-on-one conversations with people who you already know, like, and trust can be one of the most powerful ways, and it is the fastest way for you to generate new cash quickly. Now, if you think about this, the personal contacts that you have, the relationships that you have their cell phone number in your phone, those contacts know, like, and trust you. All you need to do now is find out, do they have a goal and an obstacle that I can help them with? Now, the other side of that is maybe they don't have something that you can support them with, but they may know somebody who does. Having an introduction is the second fastest way for you to get into a relationship with a potential client. I did this awesome interview with a guy named Scott Gerber on the Mentee podcast a couple years ago when I was host for season 3. And Scott Gerber is the author of, it's called Super Connector. And I asked him at the very end of the podcast, I said, look, Scott, it is my total dream to meet Tom Hanks. How do I get connected and meet Tom Hanks? And you know what his answer to me was? Get introduced. Get introduced. I know he has an inner circle of people who are like shielding him, right? Because I'm sure everybody wants to go have lunch with Tom Hanks, right? And it's by getting a mutual introduction that is going to be the most effective way to actually get into the same room or to get into a conversation with somebody like that. Okay, so not all buyers are built the same. Not all businesses are built the same. Your goals are not the same as somebody else's goals. Your business is not the same as somebody else's business. Please don't let anybody ever give you one size fits all strategy. Okay, you should seek out strategy that's customized to you. Okay, third thing. So we covered who you're in a conversation with matters, where you find them matters. Last, what you say matters. Okay, so this is called positioning. In marketing speak and in business speak, this is positioning. So positioning is taking up a very particular spot in somebody's mind when they hear your brand. Okay, so if you think about Apple, there's probably words that come to your mind, right? When you think about Michelin tires, their little slogan probably comes to mind, right? There's so much riding on your tires. You think about safety, you think about quality, okay? And that's because they've positioned themselves to be the premium quality provider of tires. So you need to stake your ground in the marketplace and declare what you are and position yourself as the person who is whatever that expertise is for you. And one of the biggest problems that I see is everybody says the same thing. Everybody's looking for high performance entrepreneurs. Everybody's looking for overwhelmed moms. Everybody's looking for you name it. I work with entrepreneurs. I work with high performers. I work with moms. I work with parents. Well, there's not a lot of nuance to that. So what that does is it makes it really difficult for people to hear you. It makes it your marketing less effective. Because when people can't hear you, you just become noise in the marketplace and people gloss over noise. We are inundated with millions and millions of bits of information every single day through what we see, through what we hear, through our touch, through our smell, through our taste, so much. And our brain is constantly filtering these things out and saying, nope, 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 don't care, don't care, don't care, right? So you have to find ways to really stand out so that people pay attention to you. And one of the ways that you do that is you look for what they are saying to themselves when they are headed to bed and they're so frustrated and they're talking to their partner and they're like, man, I'm so tired of this problem. I just wish someone could help me figure this out. And when you can really get in the language of that, people will hear that because their problems are important to them. They want solutions to those problems. So when you can really articulate and say things with nuance and specificity to them specifically, you are going to be light years ahead of the game. Okay. This is why positioning matters so much. This is why having a niche is super important, right? Niching in, having a niche, being not picky and choosy, but just being willing to say, look, this is who I work with. I work with this narrow slot of people. It is so helpful because then they find you. It's so much easier for you to be found and for them to find you. All right. So let's review what we've talked about. How to reverse engineer $100,000 in 90 days. Number one, you need to know how many new clients you need to enroll that would get you to that financial goal. Number two, you need to know how many sales conversations you need to have. Number three, how many invitations to sales conversations you need to send out. Number four, how many established relationships with qualified buyers do you need to have? Number five is how many conversations do you need to be having in order to build the relationships from number four? Okay. You need to assume 16 touch points for each person. So maybe that looks like, say on average, 5 minutes, sending some DMs or text messages, or maybe 10 minutes for a phone call back and forth. Okay. Once you know that amount of time that you need to invest into conversations, you block that off on your calendar. Okay. And you block that off based off of your timeline. If your timeline's not 90 days, maybe it's 30 days, then you're going to have more time on your calendar. Maybe you're not the person who's actually having these conversations. Maybe this is an exercise you're running through with your team. Then your team needs to have that blocked off. So if you need to be doing, say, 30 hours a week of relationship building, lead generation, 30 hours a week could look like 10 on your calendar, 10 on person A's calendar, and 10 on person B's calendar. Okay. You get to be creative about how that happens. All right. And then the last three things are to remember: who you're in a conversation with matters, where you find them matters, and what you say matters. So I hope this was super helpful. Let me know what your goals are and what support you need in getting your financial targets met and planned out for the next, we got 54 days, I think, left in the year, and be planning ahead for 2022. All right. Have an awesome day, and I will see you guys soon. Bye-bye.